So at the same time as you run your pipe all the way out to your feed head, you also need to be running these wires here. At the moment, the orange cable comes out the front of the box and is zip tied to the pipe with the same zip ties all the way across your feed head. And then this box here ends up in the center, so it hangs via zip ties off the feed head auger up there, which is anywhere from 4 to 8 meters depending on the height of the dairy. So, which makes that box just totally inaccessible. So that's why I would like to see this box mounted on the wall down beside the pump down here. That would mean that this black cable, basically, it just gets run with the pipe all the way up to the feed heads. So from this box currently, we've ran from the pump to this box in the orange cable. This plug here that comes on the end of the orange cable plugs into the front of the pump here. The left far right unit should have caps, and the first one in from the right should have caps. If you're unsure, the symbol that you're looking for is a square with a triangle in it. Or second from the left. So this black wire gets run out of this box all the way up.
So you're, just to be clear, you don't, that's past practice.
Yes.
You want that to be
Down there.
desirably down there.
Yep, correct. So
and so if from a prejudice, you want a shorter orange cable.
Yes.
Because you have your pump and your everything down here and your little timer control box close to each other.
Yes.
And then you want lots of black cable
in
your kit.
So I would only want, so at the moment I believe we've got 20 meters and 20 meters.
You'd rather have one.
I'd rather have
40.
1 and 40.
Yeah, okay.
So that's what I would like to see, and that would move this box from up here where it's totally out of the way and inaccessible to down here beside your pump, which makes things so much easier as far as calibrating and that sort of thing goes. So anyway, that's what I'd like to see,
Improvement, yeah.
but that would be something that'd be really good. Right, so we've ran this black cable up to your feed heads. Now, something that's really important is when you first get on site at your organised time, you meet the farmer on site. One of the first things you need to do after you've discussed where the drum's going to go and where the pump's going to go is which feed head in his rotary dairy is the one that's most common. So any rotary dairy can have 1 feed head up to 6 feed heads, depending on how much product they're putting into the dairy. So it's really important to make sure that we're hooking the MYLO into the correct feed heads. So all of those feed heads are going to have clutches on them, and they're going to be 12 volt DC clutches. So we need to discuss with the farmer which one he uses basically the most or every time he feeds. When I say this, he might feed his heifers F1 and F2, and then he might feed his everyday dairy cows F2, F3 and F4, which would make F2 the common motor that's used for every cow all the time. So given that information that we spoke to with the farmer, that would mean that we need to connect our red and black wires. Our red would go to the plus, which activates the F2 clutch. The black wire here, it just needs to be earthed. So as simple as that. The farmer will probably ask questions along the lines of, well, what if I just want to feed F4 for certain cows at one time of the year? The setup currently does not have the provision to do that. So it's not a path that I would go down. The whole idea of installing this is to get like 95% of the herd, basically. So F2 is the one that you would hook your clutch into. As a side note, generally this area in any dairy is really rough. Like there's been add-ons, there's it's a shambles. So always be very careful in making sure that you are hooking this into a 12 volt DC line and not a 240 volt line. If you hook this into a 240 volt line, you will fry this timer that's been provided by Terrigen.
Right.
So that's really important. So at this stage, we've done our drum, we've mounted our pump, we've done our intake line between the drum and the pump. We've ran our delivery pipeline all the way up to the top of the feed heads to our breather. From our breather, we've then gone as direct as possible down to the bottom of the feed head, going through the steps of how we mount the shield and the dispensing nozzle. This timer and cable, basically the orange cable has left our pump and has been zip tied with our pipe all the way up to the top. Our box here, which is this controller here, has been mounted up against the auger in orange cable, and then our black cable has gone from here on up to our clutch, which our farmer has deemed F2 motor to be the one that delivers 95% of the feed to the herd. For your sake, you might want to write orange cable on that and black cable on that, just so you know what that line is. So basically a few pointers to go through when we're doing this. It's more of a recap, but the pipe that goes between the pump and the drum has to be as short and as direct as possible. In a perfect world, we have the 200 litre drum directly below the pump here. This delivery pipe out to the nozzle needs to be basically as straight as possible, with no loops anywhere. Any loops in any of this system create air pockets. The air pockets will be eliminated by the breather, but the less amount of air we get in this system, the more accurately the system is going to dispense. This cable here, as it runs up, needs to be zip tied with the pipe in a neat and tidy fashion all the way up to the selected feed head that the farmer has decided. This part down here with the delivery section, we need to make sure that we meet our targets with 25 mil from the bottom of the feed head to the shield, and then 25 mil from the bottom of the shield to the actual dispensing tip. We need to be careful that the stainless straps that we put around this, that are a 5/16 size, don't squish, squash or bend that hardened plastic pipe, or else our breather won't be able to fit in there. As far as running this pipe here goes, basically the pump will work really well pushing things uphill, but the pump doesn't like to push things downhill. So as an example, if we come out of our pump and we headed up in a direction and then we headed down in a direction before we went across to our breather, this basically will lesser the quality of the dispense from the pump. We always need to be trying to go straight up in some form or matter to where we get to our breather. As far as the roofs of dairy goes, the product's not UV stable. So if we've got parts here, if this pipe is hard against the roof, if we've got sections of laser lights, say here in the roof and here in the roof, and the pipe was, say, running directly under those pieces of laser light, something to consider would be to get some duct tape and duct tape the pipe from before the laser light to after the laser light to basically stop the UV affecting the product in the pipe that's hard against laser light. The reason that we do this is because on a hot day, the product will basically bake underneath the laser light, and in turn can potentially create, what's the word I'm looking for?
It congeals, or it goes solid.
Yeah, basically solidizes or crystallizes, which then in turn, once it's pumped through, the breather will block or the delivery nozzle will block. Yeah. What else do you want to know?
That's pretty much it.